Internet's going kind of slow. There we go. All right, guys, welcome into the KSL Sports front page. I'm Zak Hicken. I am a TV producer with KSL Sports. I'm joined by Trevor Allen. He's the host of the Crimson Corner podcast, a digital producer for KSLSports.com, and he's also covering the Utes for KSLSports.com. So he has his hat in many rings, but he's here joining me today, and we're brought to you by our sponsor, University Federal Credit Union. Trevor, how are you doing today, my friend?
Doing good. I've only had to try and pick a lock on one of our bathroom doors that my 4-year-old locked, and then I'm buying a basketball hoop later, and I am issuing on here a challenge. Tom Hackett, I'm coming for you. Virtual horse, let's do it.
Okay, so I feel like this is kind of dangerous because we have a Pop-A-Shot located in the Triad Center, and I one time with Hema challenged Tom to a little shooting contest, and you wouldn't think it because he's a punter. You would think that all of his ball skills are used with kicking the ball. He can actually shoot the ball pretty well. He made like 30 shots in like a minute or something like that. It was pretty crazy. But I'm looking forward to seeing that. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun.
Bring it on, Tom Hackett. Bring it on.
Well, let's continue with this basketball trajectory. We're going to talk about some NBA. There's a report out that the decision on the NBA's return could come in the next 2 to 4 weeks. This is great news for Jazz fans, for basketball fans, for people who are looking forward to getting some sort of normalcy in all of this chaotic time that we're facing right now. The report first came from the Athletics' Shannon Charania and Commissioner Adam Silver, setting a time frame and a call with the league's board of governors. We're just over 2 months and a couple days since the league was put on pause. The 2019-20 season was put on hiatus after Rudy Gobert tested positive for COVID-19. But basically, this gives them a chance to find a way to get into like a bubble situation. They're all calling it campus atmosphere, and get into like a 3 to 4 week training camp, and then possibly starting in mid-July to resume the season and go into the playoffs. Trevor, what do you think of this?
I like it. I mean, it means that sports is getting closer to coming back. I know that there's been stuff as far as playing baseball again, and probably around the 4th of July. I know that soccer leagues overseas are looking at this and starting back up again. We already have Korean baseball, which I'm sure you've soaked in, Zach. I haven't really as much, but
I've watched a little bit.
But to have the NBA back, it's going to bring back a little bit of normal again. I mean, we're probably never going to go back to fully normal until maybe a couple of years. But to have the NBA come back, whether it's in Orlando, whether it's in Vegas, whether they split it and go to Arizona, anything like that, I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, and it's something that is going to give us something to look forward to, and to I guess have the NBA finish business, because we were getting into a really good part of the season where teams were fighting for playoff spots, and teams were trying to fight for number 1 seeds. Who was going to be that team who could be a championship type team? And we know that like the Lakers and the Clippers and the Bucks, and we're the Jazz in that conversation. That's something that will finally answer the question as we come back from this thing.
Yeah, and this is all kind of predicated on a couple of things. Number one is testing. And when they first came out and they started talking about what they are going to need to be able to do to bring back the NBA, they said that they are going to need to have tests available to everyone basically in the United States. The NBA has actually kind of walked the line back a little bit with that statement and said that that they're concerned with healthcare workers having the necessary amount of tests. That's a slightly different wording, but it's a big difference because we're getting closer and closer to healthcare workers being able to get as many tests as they want, like on a daily basis. And that kind of helps for the PR image of a league like the NBA. If they're taking tests, say, every other day or once a week or something like that, people can't really come out and complain about it if there's necessary tests for the frontline workers that are at most risk of being exposed to this.
Yeah, and that's what is going to be the really tough thing too, is also, we've actually seen it on Twitter, even though it's been, rumors have been true or not been true, is players who are wanting to return to basketball. According to some of the reports, Damian Lillard's a part of a big time group with some big names like James, as you're putting up right there, and other players who are trying to point towards getting back to action. But some of these guys are going to be away from their families for the next, 6 weeks or so, just playing basketball. And, some of them don't really feel comfortable doing that. But there's also players who just want to get out and play. But again, it all comes down to testing, being able to get the results quick enough, because I'm sure these guys are going to be getting tested every day, if not very, very often throughout this whole process.
Yeah. One report that I actually heard, it was on the Bill Simmons podcast today, was that there was a call between 12 to 15 of the top NBA players in the league, LeBron James, Chris Paul, a lot of guys with a lot of pull and power and say in the league. I think Russell Westbrook, Damian Lillard, as you mentioned, was part of it. And these guys basically, it came out that these big heavyweight players that had a lot of pull in the league came out and basically said, yeah, we unanimously want to continue the season and find a way, as long as it's safe, to move forward. So I feel like that's good news. And of course, we're kind of getting back. It all started this last weekend with UFC 249. We're getting live sports back in the United States. We're going to have NASCAR is going to begin its season once again this weekend. I think they're doing like 7 races in 11 days or something like that, to kind of catch up. And then we're going to see the Sunday after that, we'll see the Tiger, Bill, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady matchup.
I'm excited for that one.
I'm excited for that as well. And then we're going to see the PGA pick up about 2 weeks after that. And the next thing you know, we're going to have baseball, Major League Baseball, not Korean baseball. But we'll have the MLB and the NBA. And next thing you know what, we're going to have the NFL season knocking down our doors. So I feel like we're in a period where things are progressing pretty quickly. And I feel like some of these decision makers are going to find a way for these professional sports leagues to get things back on track.
Yeah, and that's something that we're all trying to, figure out what is going to come back, because, a lot of the sports leagues, obviously everybody wants to come back. It's just a matter of who wants to take that risk and who's making, the proper choices and, a way to be able to bring sports back. I mean, just so what you're bringing up right now, we don't know what's going to happen with college football. We're hearing a bunch of different things, but we know that there is going to be, at least as far as what the, of what they're doing for pro football, they're, so far there's nothing changing with that other than fans is kind of the whole question mark in there, but they haven't, but it's still so far out. And same with college football, but we're seeing now campuses are staying closed. Some schools in California are not going to have fall semester in person. It's all going to be virtual. So that is going to be the main thing for me is college football.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting week for the NCAA college football. I think was it late last week, and Mark Emmert originally said, I can't remember if it was last week or this week. It's all kind of blending together, but he said basically if colleges aren't having on-campus classes, like they probably shouldn't have a football season.
Yeah.
And then basically the Pac-12 commissioner, Larry Scott, kind of said the same thing. And then immediately after that, the California state school system, which is 23 universities, said that they will not have on-campus classes here in the fall. And so that doesn't affect any schools in the Pac-12. We're going to get to that in a second, but we're going to start with the hashtag Utes. Utah, they are a member of the Pac-12. There was mention on a conference call that you were actually a part of, on a Zoom conference call, that the league may do conference-only schedule, so it would be kind of like a round-robin schedule with the other 11 teams in the league. And University of Utah head coach Kyle Whittingham is all in on that. And Trevor, I'm going to let you take it away because you wrote the story. You know the ins and outs, all the deets on this. Kind of take us through it.
Yeah, and right now, a lot of, because basically of what the Pac-12 is doing. They're doing a coaches media webinar. They're having 3 Pac-12 coaches on each day this week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so we're obviously through 3 of them. And Kyle Whittingham was on Tuesday. Clay Helton was on Monday. Clay Helton was the one who alluded to an 11-game conference-only schedule where every single conference team would play one another. And Utah would, and being in the Pac-12, you have 9 conference games anyway. And but then there's always for 2 years those 2 schools in the opposite division where you don't play them. And for Utah, it's Stanford and Oregon. Now, Kyle Whittingham was asked that on Tuesday, and he said that he hasn't really heard of the 11-game model. He's heard of a 9-game model and a 10-game model. Now, the 9-game model, it seems pretty simple. You don't have any non-conference games, which means BYU, Utah game goes away. So does the Wyoming game and things like that for Utah. But, 10-game model, does that just mean you just add another Pac-12 school? Do you add either Stanford or Oregon? Or do you keep, a way of where you could do that is to keep it within the state of Utah and not having to travel out of state? You do 9 conference games and then BYU for that 10th game. And that also helps BYU out, because if some of these games are going to be taken off for BYU because other conferences are going to be changing up the way that they're going to be scheduling, what happens to BYU since they're not in a conference, Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. One thing that I saw online, I don't know if you saw it, but there are some discussions of the Pac-12 potentially going to a spring model. Did you see that? And if so, what do you think of it?
God, it seems weird. It really does. I mean,
I thought so too. It basically takes you out of contention for a national championship.
I mean, it really does.
The Conference of Champions,
It's supposed to be. I mean, it's supposed to be, even though there hasn't been a Pac-12 team in the college football playoffs since I think it was 16 when Washington was in it. And there's only been 2 teams in the playoffs since the playoffs came out. And I think it's weird. I have heard that. And that would really put a hamper on the rivalry between Utah and BYU if that happened, because and then what does BYU do with their schedule? I know that there's a lot of questions with that, but as far as from Utah's point of view, I don't like it if they're the only conference that are going to be doing it, because to me it just seems like why would you do that if you're going to be the only conference doing it? I mean, what are you going to do for a bowl game? Say that you end up winning enough games for a bowl game. What are you going to do about that? What is going to happen for that? Because players look forward to bowl games, and Utah's been to a bowl game almost every year since they've been in the Pac-12. There's only been 2 years where they didn't, but it's strange. But I know, having talked to Kyle Whittingham a couple of times, he doesn't care what happens as far as scheduling. He just wants to get the season in. And there was one thing that he put on there that he hopes that if they do push back the season, that it doesn't, that they don't have to prep for a game during finals week. That was another point, because normally they're in bowl prep during that time, which is different than a game. But Kyle Whittingham, he's of the mindset that he wants to play the season throughout, and he wants to play with fans. If it gives Utah and all the Pac-12 schools a chance to play one another and have fans in the stands, if you move it all the way to spring, I think that's a great thing, because that gives fans something to look forward to. It also gives you the revenue of what you need. But if it's still without fans, why bother moving it to spring?
Yeah, one of my concerns is what the lasting effects of that would be. Just how would you transition back to a normal schedule? Because I feel like you almost need like that full 8 or 9 months off that athletes have to recover, whether they're having postseason surgeries, whether they have a season-ending injury, getting ready for the NFL draft. I mean, imagine these guys, because the NFL is not going to change its schedule. It's not going to delineate from what it's doing.
No.
Imagine these guys in the middle of their season having to get ready to prep to do like a combine or like a 40 or anything like that. Like, I feel like the NBA is willing to adjust. The MLB is willing to adjust. They've already made concessions for amateur athletes to get ready for the draft. But like, if the NFL is not going to change its schedule at all, and all of a sudden the Pac-12 is, the only conference that's playing games in the spring, then it hurts anyone in the Pac-12 to get together, like to get their numbers and get combine ready, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Kyle's actually talked about the rumors of it possibly going to spring, and it was more just college football as a whole, because I know that Chris Fowler has come out and said that they're looking at potentially doing a February to May or June type of college football season, that option's on the table. Kyle was asked about that a couple of weeks ago with the local media, and he said that he wouldn't be against it, but there would have to be some things on the back end that they would have to figure out as far as spring football, because what happens to a spring football, and then you're not going to have that much time in between seasons if you're going to start back up. Say that the season goes until June, you then have until August to get ready for the season again. You have basically 1 month to get ready for a season. So you're basically going right back into camp if that's the case. Or is this going to be the new norm where college football is going to be played in springtime? But I don't see college football changing as a whole to that. But if the Pac-12 does it, it's going to mess up a lot of things on the calendar. Just like you said, as far as the NFL draft and the combine and things like that, they're not going to change that. And, I feel like that the Pac-12 is trying to do their own thing, and they really shouldn't. I think that they need to try and stay within everybody else, but also trying to get a season in.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of the Pac-12, Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott said he does not believe college football will be played this season if students can't return to campus. He said that on the Dan Patrick Show. So we've seen universities all across the country close campuses down. We've seen decisions made mainly from the California State university system, that those 23 schools that are part of that, for example, San Diego State, Fresno State, San Jose State. No Pac-12 schools are a part of it. But if they aren't in school by the time that they're, or I guess if they're not back in campus by the time the fall semester starts, it sounds like Larry Scott doesn't think that college football is going to be played.
Yeah, and that's, because a lot of it is, student athlete, you go to class, things like that. But if they're doing it virtual, that means that it's not safe for, gatherings on campus. And that means that it's not necessarily safe for your student athletes. But I've also seen things on Twitter, and Zach, I'd like to get your take on this. If campuses are not open, but say that they allow college football players to, in like small, being able to meet and to be able to work out and practice and things like that, but you're not around such a large group of students, just throughout campus as they're going to class, wouldn't that be a better thing for college football teams? Because you're not putting yourself at risk?
Yeah, this is something I've actually advocated for, like, from the beginning. And I kind of got the idea when people were talking about the NBA transitioning to, like, a bubble, quote-unquote, situation, putting all the teams in, like, a hotel. And when that was first talked about, with that being in Las Vegas and now in Orlando, this would just basically be, 130 plus universities putting their student athletes, welcoming them back to campus. I mean, this is the safest situation that you could possibly have your student athletes in. Again, you need testing. They need to be tested probably at least 3 times a week, probably each Monday, the day that they leave to go to, if they're playing an away game, the day that they leave to travel, and then the day of the game. But if you think about it this way, you're able to have these student athletes on campus. They're under the supervision of trainers, coaches, administrators, teammates. Everything that they need is available to them at their facilities, whether it's meals, working out, tutors, anything like that. You basically just house them in the dorms, and they can go back and forth to practice, or they can go back and forth to like the team facilities to go take care of their schooling, their training, their rehabilitation, their meals, anything like that. And personally, I feel like that would be, and without any other students around, that's as good as it gets for the student athletes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does, because, you're lowering the risk. And two,
Yeah.
as long as you're, testing teammates, coaches, staff, trainers, all that stuff, and no one's coming back positive, then you're good. But then what happens if there's a positive test on someone on your team?
You isolate that guy and you just keep going.
But then you have to keep testing the others, and then it could be, one of those trickle effects too. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions.
I mean, that's the thing. And yeah, we're going to see that with any league that tries to come back. If someone tests positive, you just isolate that person, make sure that they're taken care of, and then you try and stop the spread. This is basically the most effective form of contact tracing, where you'd be able to know where it came from, like the source, and who it spread to, if that makes sense. And so I feel like they'd be able to kind of stamp out that fire pretty quickly.
And, something for college sports to keep in mind, too, is, Herm Edwards brought this up on today's webinar with the Pac-12 coaches, is that parents are involved with student athletes, and that they are involved with those choices. As far as pro athletes, you can just go straight to them and say, what do you think? You can't do that in college. You still have to go through their parents, and, parents still have a say in things. So that is going to be the main thing there for that in college sports is that right there is, are the parents going to be okay with their student athletes going in around just their teammates, and there's still a risk, but not as big of one as if you're around all the students on campus.
Yeah. And like you said, a lot of moving pieces with that. It's going to be interesting to see how things kind of transpire over the next couple of months. For those of you who are interested in following it, make sure you guys go to kslsports.com. We'll keep you posted. One thing that I'm actually really excited for, Enes Kanter, the ultimate heel. I guess he's probably the second biggest heel in Jazz history.
Yeah.
Maybe third.
Yeah.
I would Hayward, say, Fisher, then Kanter.
I would say Hayward and Fisher are 1A or 2A and 2B. Hayward's number one, but Kanter wasn't here. But both Kanter and Fisher weren't here long enough for us to hate them that much. Fisher just left. Kanter actually said he didn't want to be here anymore. So I would probably even give Kanter the leg up on Fisher.
Okay, so let's go Hayward, Kanter, Fisher. Yeah. Well, speaking of Enes Kanter, as you guys can see on the screen, he, after his NBA career, he is going to be joining the WWE. This is the third player with Jazz ties that has participated in professional wrestling. First, we have Karl Malone. He's part of the WCW, I believe.
Yep.
And then
Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, and then the big dog, Antoine Carr. He didn't officially wrestle, but he participated in an NWO event. But I feel like Enes Kanter, he has the personality and kind of the charisma to be very successful in WWE. And I think that he'd be great for their marketing. I feel like he's super outspoken, and because of that, like, he'd be able to have some really great storylines, especially as a heel. He played the bad guy very well, and he can lean into it and really rile up the crowd. And I think it's a great move for him in terms of staying relevant after his NBA career is over.
Have you ever felt like that, Enes, just whenever you see him talk or, try to talk trash, that he seems a little awkward at times?
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm also going to say, why don't we put Derek Fisher, Gordon Hayward, and Enes Kanter in a triple threat match?
That would be awesome.
Maybe tables, ladders, and chairs.
Yeah, I would like to see a ladder match. Let's do like a tag team ladder match, and have those three go up against like The Rock, John Cena, and The Undertaker.
Oh, would love that so much. Zach, we really got to hit them up about making this happen. That would be epic.
Yeah, I think the match I'd most like to see for Enes Kanter, how about going up against another New England area athlete? Well, former New England area athlete, but Rob Gronkowski.
Gronk. Right after he's done in Tampa Bay, have him put his 24/7 WWE title on the line against Enes Kanter. I'd love it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. I think that we could get some great storylines out of a season of WWE with those two going head-to-head. So that was just a little fun sidebar to see what a former Jazz man's up to. And I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to him getting slammed, thrown out of rings, thrown off of ladders, tables broken over his head, and all that. Now, let's talk about a Jazz man that we're actually sending some wishes for. Joe Ingles and his wife Renee announced that they have a third baby on the way. Congratulations to the Ingles. Renee posted on Twitter, so we've been keeping a little secret, and a little picture of a new Ingles incoming November 2020. So congratulations to the Ingles family.
Yeah, that's I wonder how Joe's thinking about that, because he was once they figured out that they were having twins, he was, obviously dropping jokes with, the media after games and things like that when he was having to deal with twins. He's like, I go to bed at like 9 o'clock at night and all that stuff. So
he's going to transition from awesome. Being a good man defender to a good zone defender.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is.
I don't know how you feel about it, but I love my son, but quarantine has definitely made me want to slow down on adding another.
Man, Zach, 2 months of this.
Hey, I'm really happy for the Ingles.
I'm all right with
I'm happy
with
for the
Uno.
Ingles, but
I'm good with one. By the way, as you're scrolling, there's a story that Mitch Harper did about Purdue coach Matt Painter. He kind of went off on transfers, talking about BYU transfer right there.
Matt Harms. Yeah. That was kind of fun. I always like seeing I guess coaches be a little bit outspoken. He's obviously disappointed that he lost. I mean, Matt Harms was the second highest rated grad transfer in the country.
Yeah.
Big
get for Pope.
Yeah, it was a huge get for Mark Pope. And it's a big loss for Purdue. I mean, when you have a guy that's 7'3" that can shoot from the outside and who's a fifth-year senior, that's not something that you want leaving your program. But he goes on to say he got beat out, and he opened up during the interview. My experience has been this, and this goes back way when mommy and daddy are on message boards and on social media fighting with fans and doing all this stuff among your son. It doesn't work out for the kid normally. Do you agree, disagree, or don't want to comment? And then Painter says, what I will comment on just in general, it's hard enough to be successful the way it is. People don't realize that. Like, you get guys who have had successful careers and they go to a high major level and realize, oh my man, it's just hard to be good, and it's hard to be good immediately. It really is. And so he was asked if he was concerned about Harms transferring out. No, not at all. It didn't work when he tried to play with Trevian Williams. He got hurt a couple of times, then he took a step back. And he just basically said that, like, it's not going to be a loss for Purdue. So
he's just throwing jabs there. That's okay. Hold up a minute.
I feel like as a recruiter, this isn't something you want coming out right now. Like if I decide to transfer, coach is going to stab me in the back, or he's pretty blunt in saying he lost his job, he didn't deserve it anymore. That's pretty brutal.
I mean, not only that, you're also talking about how, him, missing time due to injury and things like that, and that it's not going to be a difference in your program. How it's not going to change the way you guys play basketball. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, you wouldn't be okay. He wouldn't be on this rant if he wasn't pissed off about guys transferring.
I agree.
So why on earth would he even do that? So for me, I think it's a little ridiculous how, and he's a well-known coach around college football or college basketball. He does a great job, for the Boilermakers. But for me, that was a little low.
Yeah, I think so too. I feel like he's maybe taking out some frustration over the air, and it's gonna be something that he regrets. But
yep.
You know what? One man's trash is another man's treasure, and Mark Pope picked himself up a pretty big piece of treasure in the transfer market this offseason, and I think Matt Harms is going to really help out BYU. It's going to be a pretty big front court, and he's going to be the centerpiece of it. So
yep.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure that he's not regretting the decision at all at this point.
Not now.
Let's get to one last thing. This was making the rounds on social media. We have new uniforms for the Los Angeles Rams. I believe that the Rams are the 7th team to unveil new jerseys this season.
Yeah, I actually think Kyle Ireland put that on because Kyle's the one who wrote this. Okay. I believe it is the 7th because I know like the Falcons are one of them, and the Raiders I know put out some stuff as far as Vegas, and
the Falcons ones were awful.
Yep, I agree with that.
The Raiders, yeah. Let's see here. We got it right here. The Falcons, the Browns. I actually really like the new Browns uniforms.
The Browns are just going to be the Browns. That's
don't remember.
Right there.
Yeah, but they kind of changed the design a little bit. They got rid of the drop shadow, and it's just a little bit more clean, simple look. Yeah. I love the Chargers design of the uniforms. I don't like that they went from like the powder blue to kind of like an aqua or like an electric type blue.
Yeah.
But they're kind of trying to rebrand a little bit as they're moving from San Diego to Los Angeles. And then Tampa Bay and New England both also rebranded as they are both entering new eras. But we were talking a little bit off the air about these new Rams uniforms. Let's get to the things that we like first. And we had we're pretty much had a consensus that we love the new horns on the helmet. The helmet's great.
Yeah, helmet's great. It's a clean look.
Yeah.
It still has that point across that they are the Rams, unlike their actual logo. But no, I mean that is a smooth, slick helmet right there.
Yeah, I like the helmet, but then we get to the uniforms, and here's my biggest problem. It's these gradient numbers. It's like the most high school looking uniform thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. It's like,
yes.
No, really.
No, you're right though.
It looks like something that like a high school uniform would do, where like the seniors get a vote on the jerseys that they get to wear for their senior year, and somehow this is what the design that comes up in the process. I don't really hate anything else on it. The gray uniforms are just weird because they're kind of like an off-white. Then they have this weird patch. The patch kind of seems out of place. Excuse me. But I like the colors, and I feel like they should just gone to the old uniforms.
Put the helmet on that Jared Goff picture right there. Put the logo, or put that really slick helmet with this uniform, and you got a thumbs up for me. But I don't like the logo because they basically took the Ram out of it in a sense. But then I don't know. For me, and again, I'm not a Rams fan by any means, and I'm not into the fashion like the way that basically everybody else in our office is. But I gotta say, the helmet is slick, the uniform and the logo are just ugly, flat out. And I don't know why they, and of what you said, that it was like seniors picking out, voting on uniforms. You're right. And it was funny, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if our thoughts change as the season begins. But we got 3 former athletes that are with Utah ties that are playing for the Rams this season. It's Trevor Burgess drafted this season, and then Diane Gunwalaku and Jonah Williams. It looks like Diane Gunwalaku has gone back to Diane Lake.
Yeah.
He posted a picture of his jersey. It said Lake on the back. So I'm excited to see these guys make their debuts for the Rams in these new uniforms. As ugly as they are, I'm excited these guys get a rep, a new squad, and I'm excited for them. So.
Terrell needs to wear a better uniform. He deserves better.
I agree. Terrell Burgess was my favorite story of awesome. The Ute season last year, just coming from a guy that wasn't a starter to getting drafted. Really cool story, but that's all we have for now on the KSLSports.com front page. Trevor, is there anything else that you'd like to add before we take off?
I've got a lot of stuff coming up on the Crimson Corner podcast. I'm going to be talking to some Utah football players, so make sure you guys keep an eye out on that. And obviously, they'll all be written up and posted on KSLSports.com. But no, we're just trying to get through this whole tough time. It's good to see you, Zach. I mean, I feel like the only time I ever see you guys is on social media, and This is definitely a weird time. So it's nice to, even if it's on a screen, it's nice to see you and talking sports with you, Zach.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been weird. It's very empty over here at the broadcast house. Coming in, I mean, we're still coming in. The TV staff is still coming in, our regular schedules. But it's just weird not seeing you or Kyle or Tom or Mitch or Ben or Madison, or just the rest of our staff on a given day. But I do have good news to report from here at the Triad Center. Sources say that we just got a new soda machine.
That's only good news for you.
See if I can, hey, you know what? When you come back, it's going to be great news for you. And I'm going to go check it out. And I'll let you guys know how it is once I confirm it with my own eyes. But I trust my sources on this one. And I've heard that it's terrific. I've heard that we got some High C, some Fanta, some Mellow Yellow. So looking forward to that. I guess that's the one good thing about having to continue to come in.
Is it better than the second floor soda machine?
I've heard that it's an upgrade.
Really?
I've heard that it's an upgrade.
And it's over in the newsroom, right?
Yeah, it's
actually a shorter walk than when we had to go to the second floor.
Yeah, I got to walk all the way up the stairs. It's a shorter walk, avoiding less people. I feel like by doing this, the company's really showing that they are taking care of its employees by encouraging social distancing, by not having to traverse across all these different floors and up stairwells and all this stuff. I feel like it's a net positive for everyone. So what is I'm looking forward to trying it out.
What do you and Sam have coming up tonight on KSL 5 News?
Oh, so we are going to dive into the Utah Jazz playoff archive. Got a couple games today, and then we're just gonna kind of go over some of the things that we talked about today, where leagues are kind of standing on returning. We had the news about Florida saying that their governor Ron DeSantis is welcoming teams to come play this coming a day after Arizona's governor said that pro teams can play seasons down in Arizona. So we'll just talk about that, and then any other news that comes up, we'll have you guys posted there on TV. So yeah, KSL Sports, we got you covered. TV, digital, radio, any platform that you're looking for, we got you covered. And once again, I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsor, University Federal Credit Union. They have your back during this entire pandemic. Go check them out if you guys are in need of any banking or loans or anything like that.